Hello, Kingdom Encouragers. This is your host, Ty Newman, and I have author Nicole Shelton here with us. We're going to dive into a candid conversation in regards to her journey with her mother dealing with cancer. I want to read off the bio to you guys just to give you a little insight about the book. So, while facing her own health crisis after a life threatening illness, Nicole found her path to writing. She also creates teaching guides and resources to encourage believers in Christ. She currently is married with one child and resides in Michigan. When Nicole's mother was diagnosed with cancer, her world splintered into pieces. Through, through her pain, she joined her mother on a harrowing fight against this relentless disease and a desperate journey to a deeper understanding of God's ways. More Precious Than Ruby offers a candid view into the emotional, spiritual, and familial challenges that come with a cancer diagnosis. The author opens her heart to share the raw realities of grappling with faith and questioning God, ultimately finding peace amid uncertainty. Through honest reflections and a candid conversation, she highlights the universal struggles facing those touched by cancer, regardless of race, culture, and social economic background. While empathy and compassion, Nicole reaches out to those who are either battling cancer themselves, supporting a loved one through the journey, or coming to terms with the aftermath. Her experience serves as a beacon of hope, reminding us that we are not alone in our pain and that even in the darkest of times, there is a path to a spiritual growth and healing. More Precious Than Ruby is a testament to the power of faith, the resilience of a human spirit, and the enduring strength of love and community. I want to welcome you, Nicole. How are
Thank
you today?
you. I am doing well. I appreciate being here and I'm excited to talk about the book.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said yes. So tell me who Nicole Shelton is.
Yeah. I would say first and foremost, I'm a worshiper and a lover of Jesus Christ. That's probably the most important thing in my life. But probably just more generally, so people can become familiar with me. I was born and raised in Ann Arbor, Michigan, so not too far from where we are now,
Mm-hmm.
and spent my younger days growing up, doing all the normal things that kids do.
Mm-hmm.
Probably had I think we all come from some kind of brokenness in our family, so I had my own share of ups and downs growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Went away to college, ended up working in banking for a short period of time. Went back to school because I thought this ain't it. And then from there, got my graduate degree and moved into human resources. And I've been working in human resources for probably longer than I want to admit.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, what made you write this book?
Yeah, I had an exceptionally close relationship with my mother. It was to the point that other people would see our relationship and they would seek out my mother for advice on how to build that type of relationship with their own daughters, especially if they had daughters coming through their teenage years. They just wanted to bridge those gaps, and so they would look at our relationship and see the closeness. And so, coming into adulthood, by the time my mother got to the point where she was diagnosed with cancer, she really was my best friend. And,
Mm-hmm.
as a kid, of course, she was mama, and there
Mm-hmm.
was no question about that. But as I got older, into my 30s, we really became the best of friends. And she was that person. I mean, we talked usually twice a day on the phone,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes once a day, but I really rarely would a day go by that I didn't talk to her. And so when she was diagnosed with cancer, it was just devastating to me. And at that time, I had just got married. My husband was working two jobs, so and I had relocated.
Mm-hmm.
So I was spending a lot of time alone trying to process through. And, I didn't want to, normally growing up, right, your mom is supporting you, but this was when I needed to step up and support her. So I didn't want to be breaking down when I was with her because I knew she needed my strength. And so when I was alone, I would just be grieving and trying to process through everything that we were walking through. And part of it was writing. I literally had wanted to write books since I was a little kid. I used to say I'm going to get a PhD because I wanted to write books, and I thought that's what you needed to write books. Of course, as I got older, I realized that wasn't the case. But that experience, it was like the pressure cooker that really brought that gift that was already inside of me. It brought it out, and it was just a way for me to process through what I was experiencing.
When I began to read your book, and I looked at what your mother wrote, she said, "The only thing I know right now is that God has not forsaken me."
Yeah. And she lived that.
Going through the process of reading every chapter, it was like your mother always had words of wisdom to say. And no matter what she was going through, she did not turn her face from the Lord. She trusted him.
Yeah.
It really touched me a lot. I shared with you that my mother had cancer and I had just came to Christ. My mother and I, we didn't have a very close relationship until we were working on our relationship as I transitioned into adulthood. But my mother faced cancer during that transition. And I had just really gotten my life serious about Christ and living for the Lord. And I just remember her revealing that she had this bump on her breast, and I was thinking it was something that wasn't that serious, and finding out that it was stage 4 cancer. It took a lot from me, and I didn't know what to say, so I had a lot of silent moments, and when she would say she didn't want to die, or why is this happening to me, I didn't really have a lot to say, but it's going to be okay. And I think that was like my introduction into encouragement, because I didn't have the right words to say.
Right.
As I read your book, I wish I had a lot of this information to give to my mother during that time. But just knowing that that whole process happened in my beginner's walk of Christ was a life lesson for me, because it opened up a lot for me to know, like, now if I know that someone is going through something, I can encourage them, or I also can recommend this book to assist them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Because at the opportune time when someone is going through something, especially a hardship such as cancer, what do you tell them if you don't know? Yeah, you know what I mean? And it's like, once the Lord continues to build you up in your faith, you can give those words of encouragement. You can pray with them and continue to walk with them through that process, because sometimes people are very afraid and they don't know what to do, and then they give in to the fear.
Right.
So just really, it's a few chapters that I do want to touch on, but just candidly, once you get the call in your book, you shared, like, it didn't feel good.
No. And I literally, it's like, kind of like with 9/11, although obviously it's not on that scale, but I remember in detail, like, where I was sitting, what I was doing. It was almost like an out of body experience. Like I just completely fell apart. And all I kept thinking was, I have to be strong, because I don't want my faith or lack of faith to be the weak link that is then detrimental to my mother. Because I knew we needed to hold up a wall of faith. We had to believe. And so that's what caused me to kind of rally, as opposed to staying in that place of just that immediate devastation and shock. And I remember, like, driving, because I got married in Philadelphia because I was living there then. But my husband lived in Michigan. And so we had dated long distance. So when we got back to the honeymoon, we were in Philly. And I remember, we packed up the car and we're driving from Philadelphia to Michigan. And I literally cried the whole drive. I mean, it's 8 or 9 hours. I'm just literally weeping on and off the whole way. But once I got home, because my mother's chemo was starting, that was like Saturday. She told me her chemo was starting on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And I came home on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I had to step up. And so I started, going to all of her appointments with her. I called my job and I'm like, listen, I'm in Michigan. This is what's going on. I don't even know what to tell you right now. Like I pretty much dropped everything and just started focusing on her. And, over time, I reconciled a lot of those things. I did keep working, but, um, I think deep down inside, I did know the word. So I had to allow the Holy Spirit to stir in me and bring that strength out of me that really was just Him.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't have that strength to stand up in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Even reading, I noticed like when your mom was like getting different treatments and things like that, and just you dealing with the nausea and seeing your mother hurt, that was really hard for you because you, from what I understand in the book, is you felt helpless because it wasn't nothing that you could do to assist her through
Mm-hmm.
those painful times. Like even though your mother continued to press on, it hurted you more to see her in that vulnerable state.
Right, right. It did. And I'm just thinking of one particular situation, and I talk about it in the book where her skin was literally purple because they had that the chemo that they were doing, they kill off as many of your blood cells. They literally take you to the brink of death. They're taking your blood and testing it. I think it was twice a day,
Wow.
and they're trying to kill off as many cells as they can without killing you.
Mm-hmm.
But you're literally to the brink of death. So she was purple because her blood was dying.
Yeah.
And then, right when you get to that point where you're really almost dead, they transplant in new stem cells,
Mm-hmm.
and then the healthy cells start to multiply, and you start to come back to normal. But that process and just watching her day by day go through that, I mean, it was brutal. It was brutal. And I think we all, if our loved one is suffering, if
Mm-hmm.
it's a parent or our child, we all want to just take that off of them.
You don't want them to feel
if
that
I could
pain.
just have like, okay, let's split it, so
Mm-hmm.
then it's not as bad. I would have done almost anything to not have to go through that. And so it's just, but what do you do in that situation? Maybe because you can't control that.
Mm-hmm.
And so all you can do is keep putting one foot in front of the other and just believing the word, believing the promises. And then my mother, she really, it's interesting because a good friend of mine read the book, and she's older than I am. So she was younger than my mother, but older than me.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a friend of my mother's as well. And when she read the book, she came to me in tears, and she was just like, your mother was so, she said, I knew at the time, but reading the book, even now, your mother was so strong. She said, because she did not look like or come across the way that you would think based on what she was actually experiencing. Because a lot of people didn't really know everything that she was going through, because she came across very positive. She was still active at church. She was still driving around doing her thing. And so you just would never know that she was in pain all the time,
Mm-hmm.
that, she had this life-threatening diagnosis. People just didn't know because of the way she moved through it.
Very tenacious and resilient. What I
Yeah.
just reading, like, wow. And just even when you were saying that you had to give your mother the shots, and with every shot, the bruising,
Yeah.
I can imagine that just really being so painful to experience and watch.
Right. It was. It was rough.
And it was like just even holding on to God's word. And it was like even through all, your mother always had a word. She
Mm-hmm.
entrusted in God no matter
Yeah.
what was going on.
She did. She did. And it really, I mean, it was such an example to me, but it also helped me through it because I think it would have been different if she had been crying and complaining and moaning and groaning through the whole thing. But it was just the opposite of that. So like how could I have done anything less? Even though I had, like I say in the book, we each had our own path to walk.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a point where I felt like our paths like diverged, like they weren't. She had to go forward with the Lord and deal with whatever was before her,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to walk my path with the Lord. And that even was, I mean, at that point I had never experienced any kind of separation from her. Like we were so close. Even as a teenager, I still always felt really close to her.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was I, it was like devastating. It was almost like, okay, it was bad enough that she was diagnosed with this. Now I have this separation that I didn't want, and I'm now experiencing that separation. It That was really difficult, and I mean, it did come full circle. And I remember, I was like, I'm like, Mom, like, I know I had to kind of like step up while you were going through your transplant and all that. I said, but now I just want you to be mom again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she had gotten used to kind of stepping back, and then I had gotten married. I'm a mature woman at that point.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, well, I kind of figured, you're grown up. I'm trying to be in the right place. I got a grown child. I said, "Ma, I don't feel that way at all. Like, if you got something to say, you're still my mother." Like, so we kind of had that whole conversation that brought it full circle, and it created like like almost like a reconciliation, even though there never was that separation didn't come because of any ought between us.
Mm-hmm.
It was just that as believers, we all have to walk our own path with the Lord. I don't care how close you are to another person.
Yeah.
We all have our individual relationship with Him, and then we come together in community.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I think that's really what we were experiencing. But we laughed about it after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
But that was probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 months later. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't right away.
Mm-hmm.
It took a while, I think, for us to acknowledge, really see and acknowledge what had happened, and then talk about it.
And even the family, how the family stepped up and came and rallied around your mom.
Mm-hmm.
Like that experience for you, just praying, your family lifting up your mom and just standing in the gap for her. How did that make you feel? Because
Yeah.
it seems like you had a good support system with your family, and how her siblings even came and also stood with it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really so my aunts and uncles, I mean, they were supportive, but I don't think they didn't know everything that was happening. And I think it goes back to, like, I just don't think anyone really knew all the details, which I can't blame on them,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because what they saw was that my mother was positive and encouraged and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm taking care of her. And to be honest, I don't know. I mean, even though it was a lot on me,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I even wanted anyone else to take care of her. I wanted to take care of her.
Mm-hmm.
So it probably wasn't the wisest thing because, I mean, I think we've all heard people talk about caregivers and how they can experience burnout and a lot of stress. And I probably was dealing with all of that, really.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, I really couldn't imagine anyone else taking care of her. Like I felt like not only should I have done it, because I do believe as children we should take care of our parents if they need us,
Mm-hmm.
but I wanted to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think my aunts and uncles, they probably would have done more if I had asked. But
Yeah.
they didn't know. They really didn't know the detail. And I know when my the aunt that I'm closest to, when
Mhm.
she read the book, she was kind of like, I didn't know some of that stuff. I'm like, yeah.
Because oftentimes when we're going through something, we don't just disclose everything that we're going into. We continue to
Right.
stand strong in our faith so people want to see what we allow them to see. And
That's
we don't
right.
open up so much to them because sometimes you can open up and people will fall with you. It's like, oh my God, it's all of this. But it's like just to be able to be tenacious and to stand and say, hey, this is my circumstances, but I'm trusting in God. And it's like family don't always get to see what's behind closed doors,
Yeah.
but just even their willingness to come and stand, not even knowing fully what your mom was experiencing,
Yeah.
but still to just come and support. And it's a lot of people out there that are experiencing a lot of health issues and things like that and don't have
They
any
don't have
support.
anybody. That's right. It is. It means a lot. And really my so my aunt that I was closest to, so my mother, she was the second youngest
Mm-hmm.
of their siblings. This aunt was the third youngest.
Mm-hmm.
And she was actually diagnosed with the exact same
Wow.
cancer. And so my mother passed in '08. She was diagnosed, I think, in 2017.
Okay.
And she passed in 2019, like right before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And it she ended up saying to me, she's like, I don't know how your mom, she's like, when I think back now that I'm dealing with it, when I think back, she's like, I just don't know how your mom, she was strong. And I'm like,
The
I
Holy
know.
Spirit
Like
rested.
I know better than
Yeah,
anybody.
the Holy Spirit rested on your mom and he
Yes,
walked with her through her
that's
journey.
right. That's right.
And it's like just to know that God is with you standing. And it's like people see
Hmm.
your strength when you can feel the weakest, but the Lord, he opens up that strength and all everyone else will see is the strength.
Yeah.
And it's just like, whoa.
Yeah. People don't see
Mm-hmm.
the backdrop, right? What's
Mm-hmm.
happening on the back end. But you know, my mother, she had a lot of journals, whatever notebook she was using to take her notes in
Mm-hmm.
church, she would journal in there. And so I have this chest. It's like literally piles
Wow.
of these journals, and I read them all. You know, when she passed, I read all of them, and then maybe because I would ask the Lord like why did she die? You know, like I expected healing,
Mm-hmm.
and that didn't happen. And so I would ask the Lord, and um, initially He just told me, like, it was essentially like, I don't want to say it abrasively, but kind of like none of your business.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like this is my plan. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not really for you to know or to question. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that was essentially what He told me. So I just let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably it had to be at least a year, might have been 2 years later.
Mm-hmm.
I found one of her journals that I hadn't read already. Somehow I found this additional journal and I'm reading it. And then, so she passed in April of '08.
Mm-hmm.
In February of '08, she wrote that the Lord had told her that she had accomplished everything that He intended for her to accomplish on the earth. So that gave me a sense of closure. And I was like, Lord, now you could have let me find this before. But I had to be satisfied that He's sovereign.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to be okay with that. And so I think once I got to the point where I was okay with it, then He could share that additional piece of information with me that it really was all in His timing
Mm-hmm.
because she had done what she had run her course. And so it was time for her to go home.
So think about it when you did ask the question, and even though you said the Lord said pretty much none of your business, had He did share it with you then, do you think that it would have affected you differently than you know Him later on?
You know, I don't know. I mean, I probably wouldn't have been able to receive it as well because I had to get to that acceptance that his will and that he is sovereign
Mm-hmm.
and that whatever he chooses to do or whatever he allows,
Mm-hmm.
um, as a believer, I have to accept that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I don't know if I would have, but I think I well put it this way: his timing was his timing,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a reason for that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I can only assume that it wouldn't. If he had told me right away, it wasn't the right timing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's been like different times that I've asked the Lord questions and I wanted to know the answer. He didn't give it to me right away.
Mhm.
And then he'll later give it to me. And it could be months later or it could even be years later,
Right.
and it's like if he ever gave it to me when I asked for it at that time, would I be able to receive it like I received it later on?
Right.
And it's just like he's
Probably
preparing
not.
our
Right.
hearts
Yeah.
to receive what it is that he wants us to receive. And it's
Mhm.
like if I just tell you the answer right now, would you be in the space or be mature enough to accept it if I tell you right now? Because oftentimes I see a lot of people are angry with God
Mhm.
for different situations that may have transpired in their life, whether it's the loss of a loved one or maybe a loss of a child.
Mhm.
And it's like if the Lord showed you the reason why he's doing this or the reason why this has happened or transpired, would you be in that place to receive what it is
Right.
that he was trying to show you then versus after you've went through this? Because we have to understand, like when God takes us through a journey, no matter what journey it is, he's building character in us. He
Mhm.
wants us to grow. He's stretching us for whatever appointed time that we may have to be an encouragement to someone else.
Right. Right. It's really true. I mean, I look at that. That was 8 years my mother was going through that, and there were a lot of different things that happened. It was kind of like you're going up the mountain, then you're back in the valley, then you're going up the mountain, you're back. There were a lot of ups and downs over that 8 years, and then fast forward when my aunt, she
Mm-hmm.
didn't have any kids, and I was her closest niece,
Mm-hmm.
and I always growing up knew like when it came to time for me to take care of her, whatever I needed to do, that I would.
Mm-hmm.
And she called it being her executor. That's what she called. Okay, you're gonna be my executor, but I was able to go through that. Um, Having the experience under my belt with my mother. So I went through it a lot differently,
Mm-hmm.
even though I was very close to my aunt. Um, and I remember at one point she was, I mean, really in tears. And my aunt, she was not a crier.
Mm-hmm.
So, but she was saying, I didn't want you to have to go through this, especially after what you went through with your mom. And and so I had to tell her, I'm like, okay, I'm at that point, I was like, I think 51
Mm-hmm.
or 50, 49, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, my whole life, you've taken care of me. My aunt, she would always take care of me. She's always doing things for me. And I'm like, so now it's my turn to take care of you. And I am full grown. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not 20. I'm not even 25. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm well into middle age,
Mm-hmm.
at that point. And I said, so I don't want you to worry about taxing me
Mm-hmm.
because it's my turn to take care of you, and I'm happy to do it. I'm honored to do it. So I think I was able to go through it in a lot stronger position with the growth that I had in the Lord after having walked through with my mother, where it was very overwhelming to me at a lot of different points. I wasn't like on top of it when I
Mm-hmm.
was going through with my mother. Whereas with my aunt, I felt like I was. My faith was much stronger. I felt like I was on top. I still was grieving. It was still difficult and stressful, but I felt like a little more ahead of the game when I went through it with her.
Because the Lord built you up. He
Right.
gave you one experience to help you through another experience. So he was stretching you through the
Yeah.
experience with your mom, and now your aunt has the same journey. and you're more strengthened to help her through it. And you know
Exactly.
the what to's and what not to's. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's how God works. He usually prepares us for the journey. Like we may not understand at the time, but it's like, okay, I'm preparing you for this next journey of life, but I have to take you, like I'm the teacher's journey, I'll call it.
Right.
You know, he's walking with you through the situation with your mom so that when you're unexperienced experience her journey, you are already seasoned in that journey so that you can walk with her
Hmm.
to help lead her in the way that you need to as far as taking care of her. And
Right.
that's a blessing.
Yeah.
And it's like just we never know what to experience or what to do, but God knows. And he'll help us through that journey. Like even like for myself, just how the Lord has stretched me in areas and just even encouragement. It's like
Yeah.
when you think about the things that you've been through in life and how the Lord has stretched you, He's prepared you, and then you'll meet someone that may be experiencing some of the things that you may have already experienced, and you can
Hmm.
give them encouragement and answers that may assist them on their journey, and even just the comfort to say, hey, don't be afraid, you can get through this.
Yeah.
And it's like sometimes many people need, and I'll say everyone, they need to hear that. They need to know that it's going to be okay on the other side. And maybe this, and this is what you need to do. And let me help you here, here, and here to make this easier for you. Whereas if they don't know what to do. And it's like that's how God prepares us because He wants us to grow. He wants us to be strong and He wants us to help His people.
Yeah. I agree with that.
So I was reading chapter 3, A Path to the Cross. And I want you to just really just elaborate on chapter 3. It was when I was reading this, it's like just going through this like situation with your mom. It's like a God experience, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And through that, it's like we don't actually see exactly like our way out in it, but it's like we're blindly going through this, but we're trusting in Him.
Hmm.
And I just want you to kind of go in and just really elaborate a little more on chapter 3.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I really liken it to some degree to when Jesus asked Paul, like, why are you kicking against the pricks? So, like, in those days, they would put the oxen, they'd have them in their, um, I guess it's not really a bridle. I'm thinking like a horse, but
Mm-hmm.
whatever they call the contraption they would use for them,
Mm-hmm.
and they would have those pricks in there so
Mm-hmm.
that they wouldn't back up, and but it kept them in order. It kept them moving forward, and I felt like that's kind of where I was because I was I still a relatively young believer at that time,
Mm-hmm.
so I had oh, I wasn't that young of a believer. Well, no, I was because that was probably around 2001.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably had been walking with the Lord for 6 or 7 years at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But you go through different things and you're still learning the Lord's ways.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I was kind of kicking against the pricks. I mean, not in that, I mean, I wasn't trying to be rebellious or, I wasn't running out in sin. I was kind of past that explicit sin, point in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But the submission and obedience, I was still learning the Lord's ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so through that situation of things are not going well around you,
Mm-hmm.
but you still have to stay the course with the Lord. That's really what I was grappling with.
Mm-hmm.
And not like, I mean, because, think about your own kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you don't want your kids to feel like you only love them if you're doing something nice for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to come to the understanding that despite what's going on around me, the Lord, He still loves me the same,
Mm-hmm.
right? That love is consistent, it's constant, it is unchanging. I can't be separated from it. Um, And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's going on around me. It doesn't matter what I'm experiencing. His love still is the same. He doesn't change, and his word doesn't change. So we can't take our circumstances and then try to extrapolate that out into some new reality that doesn't line up with the word. And so I was in that press of trying to reconcile what the word says with what I was experiencing and allowing the word to triumph over what I was experiencing, because it's like, there's all these facts out there. There are things I'm observing in the natural, in the earth realm, right? But that doesn't override the truth of the word. And going through that process, that was really no joke. I mean, it felt like being in the press. And that's why I said it was the path of the cross. That place of crucifixion is really crucifying my flesh. So I think in that chapter, that was the crux of what I was experiencing that led me to write that. And just kind of pour that out through my fingertips, as it were.
I also wanted to read something that really stood out to me, a living sacrifice. And it says, I am in torment. I am yours, Lord. I serve no one else. You healed me. You gave me life. You turned my sorrow into joy and my mourning into dancing. You gave me waters in the wilderness and the streams in the desert. I serve you only, God. I promise I will be obedient to you. Don't let the flesh take over. When I read that, I said, your mother was so confident in who she was, and she stood in the battlefield and she made her declaration to the Lord, and she said, listen, I'm standing with you no matter what. Don't allow this flesh to rise up in me.
Right.
But I'm standing my ground and I'm standing with you. When I read that, I was like, I don't know if this is like a insert from your mom's journal.
Yeah.
But
so those when my mother was alive, so I wrote that book when my mother was still alive. And she read it, like the manuscript, and she said something about she wanted to have her voice in it or something. She said like that to me. And I was thinking, okay, how can I do that? And thinking, you're just trying to be creative, like how can I bring her voice into it? It wasn't until after she had passed, I went back to the book and I'm like, I could put excerpts from her journal. And really it was just the Lord helping me to find like the right things to put in the right timing of what we were actually going through at that time. Yeah. And so, those were things that she had written in her journal. So that was her own song at the time, that she was, like you said, making her declaration.
Like, I'm standing with you, Lord, no matter what I face, I'm with you. And we know that the enemy will try to come in like a flood.
Right.
But the Lord will lift up a standard against him.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, I may be going through this, but I stand with my Heavenly Father. Right. I know where I stand. I know who I am, and I know whom I serve. Don't let my flesh get in the midst of that. Because flesh will try to rise up and will try to take over if you let it. And I was just like, when I was reading all the different inserts, this one here stuck out the most to me, because it's like when I read it, it was like I saw a woman. Like, I saw your mom's picture in the front, but just when I was reading it, and I tend to like go into like my imagination to look at the vision that the Lord has given me, and I see a woman standing her ground, and saying, here, I draw this line and I stand with my Heavenly Father, and don't you cross it. Yeah, flesh, you're trying to rise, but you better not. I'm laying my flesh down so that God can be strong in this situation. And when I read it, I was just like, oh my God, it's just, I got chills.
Yeah, it really I think of it like it's like my faith inheritance,
Mm-hmm.
that I got from her. And especially being able to read her journals, and some of the things that she may have been saying them to me at the time, but I'm facing my own battle. So I don't know that I was absorbing everything that she was saying. So to be able to go back and read those journals and know what she was thinking at different points in time, it's really it's like an honorable inheritance,
Mm-hmm.
that I can look to and say there's no reason, whatever I might be going through, because we're all dealing with stuff. Whatever I might be going through, if she went through that like that, there's no reason that I can't stand in faith in whatever situation I'm facing.
And just even something that you also can pass on to your daughter.
Yeah.
And even when your daughter have children, something you can pass on throughout the generations
Right.
of life. And it's like it's just your mother left legacy for you guys.
Yeah.
That's what I got out of it. Just
Yep.
knowing that she left legacy for you. Because as I was reading and I was looking at the different letters, and it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to call them letters. I'm going to call them notes, self notes,
Mm-hmm.
and just her notes to and her journals that she was presenting, but she left you guys legacy. So if you may face certain battles or things in life, you can go and you can read them, and it'll help you build strength and tenacity to be able to stand.
Right.
And that's a
Yep.
blessing by itself. And
It's
you
a
said it's
complete.
many of them.
Yeah.
So
Oh
just think
yeah.
about, we never know exactly what we're going to be going through in life.
Mm-hmm.
And, even with me, I anytime I get a book from an author, I always ask them to sign it.
Mm-hmm.
And, when they say whatever the Lord gives them, it's okay with me, because you never know when you're going to need that word.
Right.
And the note that you gave to me in this book that you signed, your book, is for me right now. Just because
Amen.
I'm going, my growth through this process and what I'm doing, what we, discuss with, just
Right.
doing a podcast. And it's like, we just never know when we're going to need that word, or we're going to need the words of encouragement, or, during a hard time, that we have to have those constant reminders that God is with you. You have to
Yeah.
stand no matter what. Don't fall, don't faint, stand your ground and stand on the word of God. And
Right.
it's like, just going back and just looking, it's like, wow, you know, your mother left a lot of legacy for you and your
Yeah.
family. And that's just,
She
it's
did.
blessed.
Yep. I feel that.
Mm.
I'm very I realized how blessed. Of course, I always felt that way. Even when I was young, I always felt that I was blessed to have the mother that I had, because she was just always positive, encouraging. Like, I don't know if you recall when we were at church, and um, they were asking, like, how many, Bishop asked us, how many people had a parent or someone in your life that spoke words of affirmation to you and so forth. And I raised my hand right up. And when I looked around, there was just a small handful of
Wow.
hands throughout the congregation. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I know not everyone has someone like that, but I thought it would be more than what than actually raised their hand. I literally was shocked that it was so few people. I mean, I think it was maybe like 10 people.
Wow.
It was just like a few hands here and there, and it just really broke my heart, because growing up as a child, you need that, right? You need that approval and that affirmation from your parent, and so many people didn't get that. Yeah.
Yeah. And just knowing that, like, I'm one of those people. I didn't get that. My mother, I believe my mother raised us in trial and error. She had her own things going on in life that she probably didn't deal with. And she was just like more in survival mode. She was surviving. She was trying to make sure that she was able to put food on the table, pay the bills, and that we were safe and we were warm and we had what we need, best of her ability. And it's like, I think maybe that was a distraction for her, because she probably didn't get to instill in, well, I know that she didn't instill in us what were probably necessary to instill us. She instilled survival in us. Like, if it gets rough, we know the go-to things to do. But actively coming and saying, you're beautiful, you're valuable, trust God. We didn't get that.
Yeah. I don't think, and I do think it's there's just a greater awareness now in society that those things are needed, and so I don't think your mother was atypical, to be honest. I think, especially in that generation, that was the norm. I think my mother was kind of an anomaly, and in fact, I remember one time my aunt, not the one I was talking about, but my other aunt. I remember her telling me that she just thought my mother spoiled me. And I mean, I was probably 16 or 17 when she said it. And I didn't really think anything of it because I'm like, shoot, that's between me and my mother. Like, like whatever, when you're a teenager. But yeah, I mean, she did probably spoil me in some ways, but she did a lot because she wanted me to be confident. And I think because she didn't get that. And she wasn't confident. That was something she had to struggle with. So she wanted to make sure that I didn't have those feelings of inadequacy and low self-esteem. So she spent a lot of time giving me those affirmations. And, the reality is I still got my own insecurities like everybody does. But there are a lot of things where I can fall back on a foundation of that positivity and that affirmation that I know a lot of other people don't have.
And that's a blessing.
It's a complete blessing.
Just even reading, it's another answer that I wanted to read that your mom put in here. And it was just like, to me, it was like her giving gratitude to the Lord, thanking him for this particular day. And it's in on page 72, and it said, God, I'm always amazed at you. I feel so good this morning. No medication. I know it's you. I love you, and I pray you will always know my heart. For you and that the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart are acceptable in your sight. Adonai, you will always be all that I need. It was just like, just when we're grateful for what God is doing, we can recognize and have that sense of gratitude for what the Lord is doing. And it was like your mom was well aware of everything that was going on, and she didn't take the little things for granted.
Right.
And it's like not being able to take medicine that day, that probably was a huge thing for your mom, being that.
Even to say, okay, I've been in pain for 10 days straight or whatever it was, right? And then to take this one day and say, you know what, I can be grateful in this one day. I mean, yeah. But that's why she was able to go through it like she did with that strength. And, because she capitalized on the positive. She focused on the positive. And then when things weren't going well, she was still, just, putting her life in his hands. So
she trusted God. She knew where she stood with him, and she was grateful for every opportunity that he gave her.
Yeah.
And just being able to articulate and recognize where you are.
Right.
And say, Lord, thank you for this morning. No medication. You are Adonai.
Yeah.
And I love you. Just acknowledging him, giving him the gratitude that he deserves, and recognizing and the adoration, saying, Lord, you are the most high God.
Right.
You are Adonai. You are the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Just giving him the honor and the glory that belong to him.
Yep.
Says a lot. Like your mother was, I'm not going. She was in tune with her spirit. She was in tune with who God was in her life.
Absolutely.
Despite whatever circumstances she was going through.
Yeah. And it's really, I mean, literally just sitting here listening to you talking about her, it is so wonderful. Like I mean, I feel like to me, she's the best mother in the world. And like as I've gotten older, I've learned to say she was the best mother for me. Like the Lord, I mean, he just gave me to the right mom because she knew how to cultivate and raise me. But it's just such a blessing to me just to hear her memory talked about in that way. Like yeah, I love it. I just love it.
And I also wanted to know, I know you talked about idolatry in your book and how it was like a blessing in disguise for you as well, because the Lord opened up some things for you in regards to that. Can you elaborate a little bit more on when you figured that out? Yeah. Like that you were going, like what the Lord showed you through that situation.
Yeah. You know what, to be honest, it's something that I was aware of. Well, once I came to the Lord, which was like in my mid-20s, I knew that I held her too highly, but I didn't know what to do with it. Like I didn't know how. I mean, it's like if you're in bondage in an area, it's because you don't know how to get out of it, right? Because normally, if you know how to fix a situation, you just fix it. So I knew that it was an issue, but I didn't know how to solve the problem. So I just kept on walking with the Lord. And it was through some of the things that we went through that the Lord just brought that back to me. And I was like, oh, like I gotta deal with it. Like this is now at the forefront. Like I need to deal with this. And I really, it's like I had her on a pedestal. I can remember when I would think about, and this is even because like to me, as I wrote in the book, that was the first layer of him dealing with that. I continued to deal with that after she passed. And I remember when I would think about going to heaven, I would think about seeing my mother. Wow. That would be the first thing I would think. Like Jesus was secondary to that. I knew he was there and I wanted to see him. But the first thing I thought about was seeing my mother. Yeah. And I knew that that wasn't right. I'm like, that's not right. So through the years, even after she passed, the Lord, it was like he had to deal with it in layers. And I will tell you the last layer, at least I believe the last layer, because sometimes we still got stuff in us and we don't realize it's still there. So I believe this was the last layer, was in 2023 when I had I ruptured brain aneurysm. And they put me in the ambulance and I'm sitting there and the guy was like getting my insurance card, which now that I look back on it, like, what the heck were you doing? Like, that was an emergency. Like, you should have been taking me to the hospital. But he's getting my insurance card. And the Lord said to me, in order to break the spirit of infirmity on your generational line, you have to let go of the soul tie with your mom.
Wow.
And I just started crying. And the poor ambulance, like the EMT, because he thought I was crying probably because I was in pain, because I had been crying because I was in a lot of pain. But that wasn't why I was crying at all. I was crying because of what the Lord was asking me to do. And so in that moment, right there in the ambulance, I let it go. I mean, and that was in 2023. My mother passed in 2008.
Wow.
So all those years, it was just layer by layer, he was breaking that so that he could do that final, like, because I don't know if I could have done that 10 years prior or whatever, 15 years prior. So, and I really, like now, I do think about worshiping with my mother in heaven because I believe that I'm going to be one of those people, I don't know, literally, we don't know exactly what it's going to be in heaven. But I think I'm going to be a worshiper. Like I'm going to be dancing around the throne.
I see you dancing in church.
Right. So, to me, it's like
that's your calling. Your calling is one of your gifts that the Lord has given you.
That's right. So that's what I think. And I think my mother's going to be there as well. So that we'll both kind of have kind of the same job, so to speak. A job, I'll put that in quotes. But yeah, I mean, that has been a life's journey for me to let that go. But I will say that I think, the Lord, I mean, he takes the things that the enemy meant for bad and he turns them for good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because I was so fixated on her when I was growing up, it allowed me to survive some things that happened in my childhood that, had I not been fixated on her, might have really like thrown me off or destroyed me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that thing, because having her, like idolizing her like that was not good.
Mm-hmm.
But it did help me to survive some things. And that, I wasn't with the Lord at that time, nor was she, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, and then the Lord, he dealt with it in due season. And now I'm happy to say, when I think about going to heaven, I'm really not thinking about my mother first.
Yeah.
I mean, I know she's there, my aunt's there, and I'll be happy to see them, but I want to see the Lord. Like like that is first and foremost in my mind, is just to see Jesus.
But he dealt with it in the necessary time.
Right.
And even like you said, like you looked at your mom and you were aware of how you saw your mother,
Mm-hmm.
but you saw the God in your mother.
That's true. That's true. I remember one day I was, we were in the cancer center at the hospital, and she was getting her chemo. So, you're sitting there waiting because it was an IV. So you're just sitting around. And I was looking at her, and it was like my mother had really soft skin. It runs in our family.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like her skin literally looked like velvet.
Wow.
It was, and I'm like, I was looking at her, and I'm thinking, is that real? Am I really seeing that? Or is this like the Lord on her? The glory? I don't know. All I know is I'm looking at her, and I'm sitting right next to her, so I'm 2 or 3 feet from her face.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, like her skin, it looks like velvet.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, to this day, I don't know if that was really her skin or that was just the glory showing, through her.
Listen, I want to say it was the glory.
Yeah,
the Lord was allowing
I'm all
you
for that.
to see something that you didn't see before.
Right.
So I want to ask a question to someone that may be struggling with cancer right now, or a daughter that is there for her mother, her father that may be going through cancer,
Mm-hmm.
or someone that is struggling with cancer and have no one. What words of encouragement would you give to them,
Mm-hmm.
or even a small prayer to help them, give them insight on just getting through,
Mm-hmm.
being stretched in the battle and not giving up, or just really holding on? Because, when you're going through something that can be very traumatic, such as cancer, you're constantly in and out of the hospital, chemotherapy, needles here,
Mm-hmm.
you got to get blood work here, hospital, hospital, hospital. And at some point, people get really tired. I'm tired of going to the doctor. I'm tired of them sticking me. Mm-hmm. I'm tired of them running this test. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of that. I'm tired of this. Yeah. My hair falling out. What words of encouragement would you give to someone that may be going through cancer, or that may be experiencing with someone that they truly love, and just seeing this, and it's like they're trying not to break and they don't know what to do, but they're not sure where they're at. But it's like, I need some encouragement. I need to know what to do in this moment. Lord, I don't know what else to do, and I need to hear something that's going to encourage me to continue to stand and continue not to fold, to help my loved one, to build myself up, because I just don't know what else to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have a couple of different answers, because I think we need different things. Mm-hmm. At different points in time in that battle. Mm-hmm. So the one thing that I used to do, it's literally how I started dancing, because I didn't grow up like dancing. Mm-hmm. But because I had set up my office, my work office, I set it up at my mother's house so I could be there all day. Mm-hmm. So I would get up early, I'd make her breakfast, I would be there working for the day, making sure she was taken care of as well. And then I'd be there all evening, making sure she had dinner or whatever. So I would get home. It might be 8, 9 o'clock at night, 7, 8 o'clock sometimes, and I would turn off all the light because my husband was working 2 jobs, so he wasn't home. I would turn off all the lights and I would just turn the worship music on really loud, and I would just worship. And that's how I started dancing. I literally was dancing and worshiping the burden of the day off of me so that I could just even function for the rest of the evening and have a decent night of sleep. So that was how I recharged. So to me, that's first and foremost, like, spend the time worshiping the Lord, like truly in his presence, because it's the only thing that can give you a reprieve in that situation. And then that helps you to build your confidence in him, because you can't be confident in someone that you don't know. And so that time in worship with him helps you to build that rapport and begin to trust that he has the situation in hand. So that's the next thing, right? Trusting that the Lord has the situation in hand, which in the midst of the battle is a battle in itself, right? Like just to be able to say, Lord, despite the pain, despite whatever's going on, I can trust you through this. And then the last thing I can say, which is really, I think, the most difficult part of it, is you have to allow for the person that's actually going through the struggle to kind of walk their own path to some degree. So like before my mother passed, like the night she passed, um, I said, because we had talked about her walk lots of times, and I was fine. I looked at her and I said, Mom, what do you want? Because I could see like there was something different about what was going on. And she looked at me and said, I'm just tired of all this. And I knew, because I had always told her, whatever you decide, I'm going to support you in that, even though I knew it would be so painful for me. And she passed away that night. And my aunt, who I don't write about in the book at all because I wrote the book before she went through her situation, but she was on dialysis and she decided to stop. And she felt like that was what the Lord led her to. And so I just supported her through that. So sometimes you just have to support them where they are. Like if you don't know what to do, especially if they're adults, that, because you're not walking that path, you're not in their body. And especially if they're believers, if they're saying, I want to do X, Y, and Z. Like I told my aunt asked me, what do you think? I said, I don't have a thought about it. I said, because that's between you and the Lord. So she prayed overnight, and then next day she affirmed to me, like she felt like the Lord was supporting for her to stop dialysis. And so I had to trust in her relationship with the Lord and just support that. So I think as the caregiver, you have to let them be their own person, walk their own walk. There were times when, my mother would say like she didn't want to do certain things the doctors wanted her to do, and then they would come to me and check because they knew if I asked her to do it, she would do it. But I would be like, okay, well, why does she need to do this? And if it wasn't critical, I would just tell them I'm not going to ask her to do it because she needed to have retain some control. It's like you were saying, I got to go to the hospital, get the shots, follow the protocol, blah, blah, blah. After a while, they just want to be in charge of their own lives. And so I tried to support that. So she didn't feel like diminished to just a piece of meat,
I look at this here and it says, as I lie here in pain, something like I never experienced before, I keep saying to myself, God is in charge. She knew it. She knew who she served. She knew where she was at. And no matter what pain she went through, she knew who was in charge.
Yeah. Man, I tell you, that's a good word.
Mhm.
I'm just sitting here applying it to some things that are going on in my life even now. And I mean, literally, if we could all just not just accept that mentally, right?
Mhm.
But completely reconcile our lives to that,
Mhm.
reconcile our thoughts,
Mhm.
our emotions,
Mhm.
our will. We have to be reconciled to the fact that God is in charge.
Mhm.
And it just goes along with what I was just saying, like that trust, right? That
Mhm.
it may not go the way we want. They may pass. I mean,
Mhm.
but God is still in charge. He's still on the throne. And he's got the whole situation laid out.
Mhm.
And we just have to follow.
Mhm. Follow the
Yeah.
protocol.
Follow, trust, and believe.
Mhm. Well, Nicole, I just want to thank you for coming in and taking the time to talk with us about your book. And for those that may want to get a copy of your book, can you give them your link and also what other platforms that your book is on?
Yeah, sure. So it's on Amazon. So if
Mm-hmm.
you just go on there, More Precious Than Ruby, A Journey to God Through Cancer. Um, they can also go to my website. It's Nicole Writes, all together, Nicole Writes, WRITES.com. And they can click on the buy, purchase book there as well. And actually, if they get on my website, I also have an opportunity for them to get a free 7-day devotional. So they can sign up for that, and that would kind of key them into a newsletter that I produce. I've been doing it bi-monthly, but telling myself I need to do it monthly. So let's just say we're going to do it monthly because that's what I need to be doing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'd love to get connected. They can find me on Facebook under Nicole Writes
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Nicole, for coming in. And again, thank you guys for listening to Kingdom Encourager podcast. I hope you was blessed by Nicole, our candid conversation that we had about her mother's journey through cancer. And we hope and we pray that if anyone is experiencing a hardship or if your family or loved one is going through cancer, we just hope that we have been a beacon of light to share some insight and some love and also some encouragement. But again, thank you for tuning in and be blessed.